Hey everybody, this topic came widely suggested during my support meetings that we hold on Sundays and Thursdays for addiction recovery and for carnivore support and troubleshooting. And so I didn't realize that people didn't know this very well. And this is why I'm filming this video for you. I'll tell you more about the support meetings towards the end of the video. But for now, what is the cure for addiction? Yes, I said cure. Can you really cure it by doing one thing and never really maintaining it? No, but this is the best thing that we have at our disposal, in my opinion, that addresses the root cause of addiction as opposed to just putting band-aids on it. All right. So cardio that is progressively getting more intense over time is the cure, and I'm going to put it in quotations. And more on that in a second. But first, to understand why I'm saying that, you have to understand what is the root cause of addiction. The root cause of an addictive brain is a destruction of your dopamine receptors. We call them D2 receptors. So dopamine is the molecule of motivation and good mood. It's called the anti-stress molecule. When you release it, all feelings of tension and stress dissipate very easily, right? But it's not about releasing the dopamine only. It has to attach to its D2 receptors in your brain for you to feel the amazing effects of dopamine, right? It's like a lock and key situation. You pump out that dopamine, but you don't feel anything until it attaches to its receptors, or the D2 receptors in the brain. So think of two adjacent brain cells. When one neuron or brain cell releases dopamine, it has to attach to the D2 receptors on the adjacent brain cell for you to feel the effects of dopamine. So now you release the dopamine has to attach to the receptors on the adjacent brain cell, again, like a lock and key situation. What addiction does is that it destroys the D2 receptors on the adjacent brain cell. So now, and by the way, the more severe your addiction, the more destruction you have in your D2 receptors. What constitutes a severe addiction? We have questionnaires that we can go through. Also, the age of onset, the younger you are, the more severe the addiction could have become over time. The dose, if you've progressively increased your dose of the drug or food, that means your addiction has become more severe. There are a lot of ways to address that. That's a topic for another video. How does addiction destroy D2 receptors in the brain? Every time you ingest a drug, whether that's a cupcake or you're shooting heroin, and we know that actually sugar and the sweet taste is more addictive than heroin. We don't have studies that show what would happen if you do high sugar, high fat. Can you only imagine how much worse the addictive profile of those foods are? If only sugar is more addictive than heroin, then yeah, this is when the food industry is really going to get very scared once those studies start actually getting done. Okay, every time you ingest a drug, you release super physiological levels of dopamine in your brain. Your body doesn't want that because it doesn't know for how long this high level of dopamine is going to stay there. And think of if you're doing cocaine, right? It's a stimulating drug. It makes you not want to sleep, not want to eat. You could literally waste yourself away. And so your brain is actually protecting you from this unknown indefinite amount of stimulation. So what does it do? It starts to destroy the D2 receptors. So now you're pumping out the dopamine from taking cocaine or a food that's addictive. But your brain doesn't have enough D2 receptors now. It has down-regulated or destroyed the amount of dopamine receptors present. So now it doesn't matter how much dopamine you're pumping out, you really can't feel the high anymore. However, that builds tolerance, right? And so you start increasing the dose of the drug because now you're pumping out even more dopamine, and whatever D2 receptors you have left over on the brain cells, you can now hit them with intense or more frequent hits. The intense or increased frequency of hits also increases the level of the high. So that's why you build tolerance. So what is a craving? A craving for a drug or a dessert, which most of you probably know what I'm talking about when I say you're craving dessert or craving a carbohydrate or craving something crunchy. That craving is nothing more than just you feeling this low level of dopamine activity that you have at rest. It's like your brain screaming at you, this life is too painful. with not enough dopaminergic activity. So go do anything that's going to raise dopamine. And this is usually the trigger for relapsing or going out and getting cookies or chips or cocaine or whatever the drug may be. It's all pretty much the same. So ever since I've been doing a deep dive into addiction medicine, ever since I actually did my doctoral dissertation on chocolate and sugar addiction, I have yet to encounter a more effective method of tackling the root cause of addiction that is more effective than exercise. That's because exercise not only increases dopamine while you are doing it, it also rewires your brain so that you have more circulating dopamine at rest and more D2 receptors at rest. So even when you wake up in the morning or in the afternoon, that afternoon slump where most people have cravings, you don't have that anymore because your baseline level of dopaminergic activity has been elevated. And here's the best part. The more intense your cardio session is, the more you increase that circulating level of dopamine and the more you increase the density or concentration of D2 receptors even at rest or at baseline. And it is important that I stress that it is the cardio that is the type of exercise that does this dopamine and D2 receptor activation the most effectively. This doesn't mean that you don't want to weight train. Obviously, you do want to do that for also the mental health benefits and the physical benefits, all the stuff. Yeah, you do want to lift, but don't think that if you're just lifting and you're going higher up with your lifts, that that's going to provide the same level of dopamine healing that you would get from cardio, especially intense and more intense cardio. So in a way, what I like to visualize is the speed on a treadmill. Every time you can hit a new speed, this is in direct proportion to the amount of D2 receptors and dopamine activity that you're now getting to enjoy even at rest, even at baseline. Which means that if you are running out of breath after just 1 mile, that really doesn't bode well for your resilience against a relapse or overcoming a food addiction or sugar addiction or any kind of addiction. You really want to tackle that root cause, and that is by training hard. If you want to learn more about things like that, about how cardio regenerates D2 receptors, about how you can activate mirror neurons by joining a community of people that are doing the same thing that you're doing, going through this sobriety process at the same rate that you are. Those things and more are being taught by me twice a week during our support meeting. So I'm holding a support meeting every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern and every Thursday at 12:45 p.m. Eastern. So if you're interested in joining, you can send me straight to my PayPal address, which is drsarahzaldivar@gmail.com, either $49 because that would mean one session per week. So that would be 4 or 5 sessions a month. Or you can send me $99 and that would mean you want all the sessions, so twice a week for 4 weeks. And make sure you put in the notes section your email, your preferred email, so I can send you the Zoom link so you can join us for the next session. So those are the kinds of things that we talk about in the sobriety and carnivore support meetings. We talk about how mirror neurons are really the only part of your brain that's left that you actually have control over. And that is a very powerful force that you can take advantage of when you join this community of people that understand food addiction. Because most people, they have gone through diets all of their life and they have over time lost credibility with their friends and family. And so now if they're telling everybody, I don't want any sugar, any carbs, any of this stuff, this is a real drug, I don't want you to trigger me, you don't really have credibility left, right? And so you don't get that support anymore, unfortunately, from those closest to you. And we know that without support, the rate of relapse is pretty high. I think it's like 99%. So almost everybody relapses. But once you add those support meetings, the rates go up to like 80% only, which means we've got 20% success rate. And then if you add the cardio and all the other things we talk about, now you're jumping up with the chances that you're actually gonna once and for all overcome this. Other things we've talked about last Sunday, for example, is how a cold plunge is going to increase your dopamine production by 250%. Those are all studies that I also share with everybody in the meeting. So yeah, if you're interested in that, let me know. Other than that, I hope you learned something new in this video. Thank you so much for sticking with me till the end, and make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell icon so YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.